everybody. It's Thursday, August 26th, and we're back with another episode of Nonprofit Executive Spotlight, an occasional series showcasing members of the nonprofit community. I'm Cecilia Sepp. I'm the founder and principal of Rogue Tulips Nonprofit Consulting and Association Management Services, and I will be your host today with our wonderful guest, Erik Schonher. If you don't know Erik, you probably have heard his name. He has been a longtime member of our community and a professional leader. And we're here today to talk with Erik about engagement at associations. Welcome, Erik. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, Cecilia. Sure. Erik Schonher, folks. How are you today? I hope everything's going well. Real quick, I've got over 25 years of experience in the association world. I've held leadership positions in both the associations as well as consultancies. And you may best know me by my work at MGI or Marketing General. I actually assisted in the actual launch of the Membership Marketing Benchmarking Report many, many years ago, and actually oversaw the production of that document for 7 or 8 years. I speak or have spoken frequently at any number of ASAE or association related events on anything from membership sales to analysis to data analytics to staffing. So that's a little bit about me.
Oh, that's great. And that's just touching the surface, in my opinion. I've known you for a long time now. We've been friends for a good chunk of that time.
Yeah.
And you have what I call the trifecta of nonprofit and association experience, which is you've worked at an association on staff, you've been a consultant to associations and nonprofits, and you've also been a high-level volunteer. So I think that brings a lot to any organization, right? So,
well, thank you.
You're welcome. And one of the things that I really want to talk with you about today is engagement. So you are one of the most excellent networkers, relationship builders, relationship maintainers I know in our space. And I know that when you and I have talked before, you have talked about how much you love working with the members and that engagement aspect of getting them involved, helping them make things happen. So what are some of your insights or advice or things you've learned along the way about engagement, keeping in mind we only have a 15-minute episode?
Wow, well, that's a really good point. And it's a great question. This is engagement. Remember? Associations were started. The history of an association is a bunch of people, business owners, if you will, or concerned citizens sitting around a table at a pub or at the local community center saying, we really need to get together and make something happen. Because they understood the power of multiple people and a multiple consciousness to force an event or force an agenda, if you will. And I'm saying agenda in positive ways, and there's that negative, but don't worry about that. That's where the rubber hits the road. And I think that many, many times associations miss the fact that they are really there to help facilitate that relationship to make something happen at that grassroots level. And that's what's so much fun about an association and why I enjoy leadership spots with associations, whether it's as a consultant, saying, meeting with the board of directors or meeting with the leading executives, leaders, saying, this is how we bring in more members, or this is how we're going to sell more product lines, or this is how we're going to better educate our members. Because at the end of the day, we keep in mind what they need in order to make something happen at that grassroots level. And I don't care if you're a trade association or if you are an individual membership association or you are some kind of combination. The bottom line is we have to think in terms of what they're trying to achieve or what is best for their industry or for them to achieve their goals. And we facilitate that. And to that point, Cecilia, you and I were chatting about facilitators, great facilitators in the world. Whether it was the man who founded Apple or the man who founds who founded IBM, or any number of, or even, Ray Kroc from McDonald's, whether they were good or bad people, that's beside the point. The bottom line is they understood how to have a vision and say, okay, fine, I know where that hill is. I know where that sun is going to set. I am going to shoot for that, but I need your help. Because that sun, where that sun is setting, that's what you want to do. That's where you want to be. So let's get together and figure out what are all the multiple hills and streams that need to be forded, and all of the roadways that need to be cleared, and all the forests that need to be moved. What is it that we have to do to get to that sunset? And that's what I do. That's what I like doing. That's about getting members engaged, and engaged at multiple levels, whether they're leaders, they're volunteer leaders, or they're the guys who actually, the rubber hits the road. This is where something's going to happen. That's fun. And I think that that's really what we all love to do in the association world, because then you see the actual output of all of that energy. You see an actual something occurring. Mm-hmm. That something occurring is, sure, we got to that sunset. That's fabulous. But more often than not, it's watching the personal growth of someone. We see it in our own staff, but you see them elevate. You see them become just a little bit more, a little more smarter, a little more wiser, a little more self-assured through these little accomplishments. You and I were talking about taking little steps. Sometimes when things become so big, and association work, let's face it, this is a lot of stuff is going on here, a lot of stuff. But we have to narrow it down, and we have to take these little baby steps. And I love being the guy that says, let's take a look at those baby steps. How do we get all of these? Let's take these next 10 baby steps. How do they get us to that sunset? And that's what I do.
So obviously a very passionate and visionary leader.
Yes.
Which I love. I feel the same way. One of my favorite things to do throughout my career was doing chapter relations, because
right.
Like you said, where the rubber hits the road, right? Those are people who show up because they want to be there.
Exactly.
So that's a really exciting thing. So how can you, as this visionary leader working with people, mm-hmm. What do you do to get that engagement? How do you translate your excitement to the member?
It's interesting. You listen. Here are people talking about their passion. So often we forget that this is not a job to our members. This is what they want to do. And if you look at it through that field of vision, you realize that they want to get something done. They want to make it better. They have an idea and they want to execute that idea. Well, the only way you know that is by listening to them. And then you say, wow, you acknowledge the fact that you heard them. And you point out, hey, how do we make that happen? And then they come back with their own ideas, and then you work together to create and realize ultimately their vision. Isn't that our job? Our job is to take their ideas and make them real to the best of our ability, to the best that the situation allows us to, right? Mm-hmm. So whether you're working at that senior level, working with a board of directors, or you're working at that next level down, or you're working at the grassroots level, or when I've had a chance to actually go out to a chapter, working with members at the chapter level, it comes back to my asking, what does success look like to you? And how would you go about doing it? Because this is your association. And then giving them whatever wisdom or whatever knowledge or whatever opinion I may have, saying let's let's take this piece of clay or this rock and let's bang off those rough edges and let's create this picture that you want to create.
Well, and I think the point you've made that I would like to repeat because it bears repeating is it's one step at a time. It's not the whole project immediately.
Right.
And when you're keeping in mind that a lot of the people you're working with are volunteers, they only have a few hours a month maybe to help out on these things. We have to make them bite-sized pieces, so to speak.
Right.
So they're not
so you're absolutely right.
Right. So so I think overwhelming our volunteers is something that happens unintentionally, of course, but it does happen because maybe we find somebody's like, well, sure, I'll do that. And the next thing you know, you've asked them to do 12 things. I mean, they say if you want something done, ask a busy person, right?
Exactly right.
So,
sure.
But then that can lead to volunteer burnout.
Right.
And then a lot of negativity comes into the culture. So what are some things you do to keep those members from getting overwhelmed? Because they get super excited about stuff and they take on a lot of stuff and not realizing exactly what it means. And so how do you help people stop that? Like, how do you stop burnout or keeping them from being overwhelmed?
And I think you've really touched on something which is very important for associations to know, that first off, we all know not everybody in a marketplace is going to volunteer or join. Now, not everybody who joins is going to volunteer, and not everybody who volunteers is going to volunteer every single time. So we've got to be careful about what we ask, how we ask it, and how often we ask. And I think that it has a lot to do with the culture of the association and being sensitive to that culture. And working with the leaders of the chapter level, or working with the leaders, senior leadership, saying, okay, we're facing burnout for this kind of position, this kind of work. Let's start looking at other ways to ask people. Let's start looking at or maybe we can take a look at what needs to get done, and we reanalyze it. We do another task analysis on it and pull it apart and saying, okay, maybe instead of this asking somebody to do 3 steps over the course of 6 months, we ask them to do 1 step over the course of a month and a half. And it adds to our workload, because we got to manage that, and you got to make sure that these things get executed in a timely fashion. But better that than depleting what is arguably the most important research a resource that an association has, which is its members.
Right.
And so that's how I do it. There's this human element to what we do, and we need to realize, yes, tasks need to be done, but they need to be done in a human way. There's so much that can be accomplished. I always, and we were talking a little earlier about the worry of people working from home, especially during this COVID period. Where does that line blurs? So we have to worry about burnout among our own employees. But we have to worry about that also with our volunteers, especially since, they get excited and they want to do more. They may just go, God, what am I doing? This is all I'm doing.
Well, and we really don't want our volunteers to end up feeling like they're doing an unpaid second job, right? Because volunteering is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be an opportunity to learn something new, apply what you know in a different way.
Yes.
To kind of grow, have a fun experience, not just a work experience. So,
correct.
But speaking of experiences, unfortunately, this one needs to end.
No.
End of our episode, and I'm so sorry because this has been a great conversation. So Erik, thank you for being on Nonprofit Executive Spotlight.
Okay, and thank you, Cecilia.
I would like to ask you, how can people get in touch with you if they want to follow up?
Well, there's always, there's smoke signals. No. Flare guns, anyway. You can certainly reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm there. Erik Schonher. And of course, if you'd want to email me, then my email address is erik6193@gmail. So just, reach out and we can have a chat.
That's great. Well, thank you again, Erik. And if you would like to add a passionate visionary leader to your organization's team, please contact Erik and find out how he can help your organization. So, well, that's it for this episode of Nonprofit Executive Spotlight. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next time with another episode unless everybody gets a job. See you then.